when buying a car. And first one was not understanding the market value of a trade. Described that pretty good, Louie.
You had a
what's the
question,
second
though.
one?
What do you say you had a question for me?
Yeah, well, you know what? Just to finish up that one, I said there is not really a good reason for that to be a mistake now. With the internet, good grief, you can just type in a couple little things and get the market value pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, you should. And again, if you're listening, excuse me, there is no reason for anyone to not buy a car and know they got a good deal, you know? And again, and that's what we're talking about with mistake number 2. Now, this is the one where I want you to, as a true consumer here, you know, and I wish this was kind of a live call-in situation, because I tell you, I would love to hear some feedback on this. And we may during the week, because you have a question about leasing. Write that down, because I want to answer that as well. But mistake number 2 is focusing on the dealer profit, not necessarily your best deal.
I got
Do you think that customers focus when they're buying a car on how much money's being made on them versus focusing on their best deal for their family and their budget and the research they've done?
I think they do think a lot about that. I mean, I think they think that, you know, hey, he is out to just
jack me up,
take me to the cleaners, and it's.
Well, check this out. What about buying a house? What if you knew that you were buying a house from a builder in a brand new subdivision, everything pristine, beautiful. You knew the market value of the homes. You knew what the comps were around the area. You knew you were getting a pretty good deal. But at the closing table, which is a true scenario, you see, if anyone's paid attention, you can see all the papers being passed around. There's actually a physical check being passed around. You can see the difference on the closing statement. What if you knew the builder made $86,000 on the house?
Yeah.
Does that make you mad?
Yeah, you know what, Louie, that's a great point. That it's not apples and oranges.
It doesn't make you mad,
yeah,
does it?
No,
it
doesn't. You're right.
You know, and I'm going to tell you where I think with the problem rises. And first of all, past experience. Consumers have just gotten battered over the years, okay? Yeah. You know, unfortunately, I and many other dealers today pay the price for the folks in the 60s and 70s, the way business was done, which is horrible, absolutely ridiculous. And everyone can agree to that. But I think a lot of it is because there's so much information. You can't go buy a house and sit down with the builder and say, okay, look, here's the deal. I've been online. I've been researching to builders.com, and I know you paid X amount for the plumbing, X amount for the electrical, X amount for the architects, X amount for the wood, X amount for the paint, the carpet, the drywall, okay? And so I know what you paid for everything. And so here's what I want to make you an offer. You don't have that information available to you, not as readily as you do with a car business. Now, if you knew a builder, I'm sure there's a way you could probably find that out, but no one really goes through that. But with a car, you can go online and find out that the Toyota Camry, as an example, I'm not saying that it does, but as an example, invoices at $20,000, and you know that it stickers for $23,600. So in your mind, it's mind blowing, and it could be a problem for you to focus on, hey, the guy's only discounted at $500, right? So how do I make this a mistake? Well, my thought process in this is, would you be mad, Chip, if you knew that today you and I negotiated a deal and the incentive on the Toyota Camry today was a $1,000 incentive, and incentives change weekly, monthly with Toyota, Honda, Chevrolet, all brands. They're always moving based on the target of the number that the market share they're looking to get, right? Okay. So when you and I work a deal, you knew the rebate was $1,000. But we finished our deal. Everything was slick. Everything was good. Everybody's happy. You hear a commercial the next day. Commercial says, hey, Toyota Camry just announced 000 plan, you know, whatever, and $4,000 rebate. At that point, would you feel upset about the deal you just constructed? Or would that not matter? You had a good deal, but now would you feel like you got a bad deal?
That's a great question. I'd feel like
you got shafted, probably. Okay.
If I could have got it yesterday, you know, I should have got it today.
I know. Let me tell you, and when I brought this up as a mistake, the reason why I bring this up as a mistake, because I think and I think I'm saying almost the same thing. If you focus on getting a great deal and you do the research you need to do to get your deal, it's going to subsequently affect the profitability of the deal for the dealership and save you the money. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I have so many customers, and maybe folks that are listening now, and I'm not mad at anybody. I mean, I understand. I mean, you have your right to go buy a car and make sure you don't get taken to the cleaners. That is your right and responsibility, which is why we're talking about what we talk about. But there's so many circumstances. I'll give you a great example. We had a car that we bought at the auction, had a transmission that needed to be replaced. We bought the car. Book on the car was $10,000, $2,000, $2,500 is a transmission, and we bought the car for $6,100. Well, that car with a good transmission would retail for $12,500. Well, we got a good deal on a transmission. Sold the car at $11,500 or whatever the number was after we negotiated. But in my mind, if a consumer knew that we got a great buy on the front end, which, you know, you could trade for one, you could buy for one, man, does that make you a bad dealer because you made $4,500 on a deal, but it was still in line because you replaced the transmission and reconditioned the car? The point is simply this. I'm not saying it's good for a dealer to make $5,000 no more than it is for them to make $300. All I'm saying is, as a consumer, focus on your deal. Focus on your budget. Focus on what you know is to be right and stand firm on that figure. I don't care if you do the research and the invoice is $10,000 and you want to offer them $10,000. Hey, if that's your plan and that's your budget and that's where you want to be, that's where you need to stay. And I think if when you're shopping for your deal, I see it all the time. Consumers get so caught up in, and again, when you're shopping dealer to dealer, my goodness, why wouldn't you think if you're looking at difference figures and numbers, and this guy's going to give me 10 and you're only giving me 8, man, I'm getting hosed. This isn't, again, in the grand scheme of things, I believe in my heart, if a consumer does the research, goes through the steps, plans their budget, doesn't move off the budget. Remember last week I told you, when I'm in the auction and I look at a car and I know that car is worth $10,000 and 13 people around me with excitement, their hands are bidding in the air, I'm not going over that figure, period, because it's not smart. It's not good business. I'm not being a good steward of what I've been provided to buy this car. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think the consumers, if you're listening, don't make the mistake on focusing on profit. You know what? Focus on as much as you can save. And I think I'm saying the same thing, but I think the mindset, the focus is sometimes on what the dealer's making, not on what you're saving. Yeah. I think if you work your deal and you take all the points that we're talking about here and you go to theautoschool.com, I think you would serve yourself a lot less stress and feel great about your deal. And that's the whole point, is making sure you feel great about the deal. So that's mistake number 2. Focus on your best deal, not so much focus on dealer profit. What's your comments to that, Chip? Because it looks like you're chomping at the bit there.
I think I can sum it up. Just because the consumer's getting a good deal doesn't mean that the dealer can't get a good deal too.
Right.
How about that?
Well,
both y'all can get a good deal.
You know what I look at is I learned a long time ago that every transaction needs to be a win-win. Yeah. Okay? If it's not good for me and it's not good for you at the same time, somebody's getting screwed. Right. Excuse the language, but that's basically the feeling. It should not be that way. Yeah. I have this thing that pops in my head, and I don't want to get spiritual or religious on anybody, but and I don't know the chapter and verse, but there back in the day where you remember how you used to get the old term, a little extra for good measure.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer that back in the day, somewhere in Matthew, I can't recall where it's at. You know, they used to get the grains. The guy would give it. Yeah, they'd get it. The old verse is something like shaken, pressed down, and a little more for good measure. Yeah. I believe that's how every transaction should go. Everybody should have something for good measure. I open a bag of chips up today, Chip. You know what I get? I get half the bags filled with air. That thing's not filled up to the top. You know, I think everybody should have a little extra for good measure. I think it should be a win-win because, like you said earlier, there's service business, there's parts business, there's referrals. And, man, I'm telling you, if dealers are listening to me right now, it doesn't matter who, that's how we make great transactions. That's how people feel great about buying a car. And so that's why I think mistake number 2 would be focusing on the profit. Focus on your deal. Be empowered. Take the information. Knowledge applied is very, very powerful. And like last week we talked about negotiating, the best thing you can do is use your feet. If you don't like what you see, it's not in line with what you say, get your butt up, get on out of the store.
Gotcha. All right, Louie. Louie Herron from Louie Herron Toyota in Milledgeville. Very good. We're about halfway through. We've got more critical mistakes when buying a car, and we'll check in with more with Louie coming up. It's 3:50 on the dot.
Everybody knows a game is better with a goal. The goal is better with announcers. Goal! Announcers are better in the movies.
In a world with no plot.
Movies are better with fast cars. Cars are better when they take you to McDonald's. McDonald's is better with Coke. Coke is even better when it's $1.